Have everybody's attention, please. Spencer, put away the Rubik's Cube. Kill the lights, please. Okay. You, judging by your quizzes, you really need to be paying attention right now. So here's the scoop. I predicted in my mind. Oh, come on. Hello. Okay, she'll come down the end of the period. Bye. Caitlin Sayers, backpack, down in the office at the end of the period. Now, I predicted in my mind that you guys would get the first one wrong because having done this for a very long time, kids don't lock in on this word completely as well as they should. Completely always means 2 steps. Will everybody please on your quiz draw an arrow to the word completely and write 2 steps. Okay? Completely means 2 steps. So the first step, just about every person in the room did correctly. They looked at it and they saw that they shared a 5 and an x in common, and they pulled out the 5x, and they were left with x squared minus 4. Now the question was, did you do anything with that x squared minus 4? X squared minus 4 is x plus 2, x minus 2. It's the difference of 2 perfect squares. So this is what a lot of kids left on their answer space. This is the correct answer. Okay? So what does completely mean, everybody?
2 steps.
2 steps. We're going to talk some more about that later in the lesson today. All right, so now we get into the word problem here. And, I thought you guys would do better. I thought, as I was doing this question, I said, man, I gave him a really easy one. I can't believe I gave him such an easy one. And the truth is that if I really thought that this was as well as you were going to do on this quiz, or if this was the last one in the series, I would have given more partial credit on the last one than I did. But I'm just looking to get these things graded as quickly as I can. So if you got it wrong, for the most part, unless there was something obvious you did right, I just didn't even bother looking for anything you did right. I just gave you no points. But I don't care, because tomorrow you're going to do this a whole lot better, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, so we set it up. First integer, second integer. This should be automatic. There should be nothing to think about. We're always looking to set stuff up. Perhaps you want to underline next time the phrase 2 consecutive integers. That way you know to come over here and write 2 consecutive integers. Then it says the product is 20. That means if you multiply them, so there's the first one times the second one is 20. And at this point, this should be very easy at this point. Distributing the x, x squared plus x is 20, get it all on one side, factor, and then we had a little bit of a mess up at the end here, which is, again, kind of predictable. X plus 5 is 0, x minus 4 is 0, this is negative 5, this one is 4, but then you're supposed to take those answers and plug them back in over here. Negative 5, what's negative 5 plus 1? Negative 4. So that's the first pair of numbers whose product is 20. And then over here, 4, whoa, and then do 4 plus 1 and you get 5. So remember, this is a quadratic. The highest exponent is 2. That means there are going to be 2 possible answers. But when you get negative 5 and positive 4, those are not your 2 answers. And some people were stopping there. Some people actually went on the side and did negative 5 times 4 is 20. Negative 5 times 4 is not 20. Negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. Negative 5 generates one possible pair of answers. 4 generates the other possible pair of answers. And then we do a quick mental check. Negative 5 times negative 4 is 20. 4 times 5 is 20, and they work. Okay? Any questions? No. Now, I think we know each other well enough to know, and I know you well enough to know, that if you just take the time tonight to go over that quiz before you take tomorrow's quiz, you're going to be very improved. The problem is if you don't take the time. And we're going to find out whether or not you're going to make time to do that. All right, homework. There are good sides to doing all the work yourself when you create your lesson sheets, and there are bad sides. The good side is that you're not limited by what the book says. The bad side is, at least in my particular case, I am a horrible editor. Even when I wrote many articles for magazines, I did not edit my own stuff. Not at all. I wrote a paper for a friend of mine. She's in college. She needed to write a paper. She's from Lithuania. She needed to write a paper on American history. Do you think she knows squat about American history? No, of course not. So I wrote the paper for her. Writing the paper was easy. Researching was easy. Editing my work to make sure I didn't make any grammatical mistakes, pulling teeth. Plus, you know the worst thing they can do with an essay? Give you a word limit. That's the worst. It's the worst. There's a very famous mathematician by the name of Blaise Pascal. He invented the first computer. He was one of two people, along with Newton, who invented calculus, which you'll learn about a little bit later on. And Blaise Pascal had one of my favorite quotes of all time.
So he hates kids?
Blaise Pascal wrote to his friend, he said, "Forgive the length of this letter, for I lack the time to make it short." And that's brilliant.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it's perfectly brilliant. Because if you're just going to write a letter to your friend, or you're just going to write a paper for class, you just write. You just go, blah, 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 blah. But if you're really going to make it good, you then got to condense it, you got to rearrange it, you got to put it together, you got to hone it down, sculpt it, et cetera, et cetera.
So you're saying he doesn't have the time to think about what he's going to say?
He's just going to say it, and he's not going to say it in the best way possible. So when I wrote the paper was very good the first time. Then I went through and I sculpted, rearranged, edited. It had to be 500 to 700 words. And I got through at about 875 words, and I said, oh, this is good. This is really good. And then I did the word count, and it said 873 or something like that. And I went, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So then I went through and I edited it more, and I eventually got down to like 695 words. But she has to include 2 references from the book, and I don't have the book. So I had to leave her space, and I'm like dying here to get it down to 630 words. It took me every bit of 3 hours to go from 870 whatever words to 635. It took me 45 minutes to write the paper. Keep going and going and going. So editing is a really big deal, and we want to make sure that we're good at editing. I don't always edit my lesson sheets the way I should. For instance, you can't factor E here. I tried it. I even took my calculator out and did Y equals, and I think this multiplies out to 490. Yeah. And then I looked for a difference of 29, and there isn't one. I could get a difference of 21, but I couldn't get 29. Janelle?
How did you do C? Like, why did you get the or part?
Oh, you don't need both. You can do either one, but doesn't to square something mean to multiply it by itself?
Oh, yeah.
So when I write x plus 5 times x plus 5, that's the same thing as x plus 5 squared.
But I thought we would have to simplify it all the way to you can't simplify it anymore. So.
Either one is.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both fully acceptable.
Okay.
The reason I actually did this is for a coming lesson where we're asked to do x plus 5 squared, and I don't want you writing x squared plus 25, which is what a lot of kids do. All right, it's kind of a hint at the future. We actually did it in the past. It's a little reminder now and then a hint at the future. Okay, again, editing 3A I can't do. B and C we can. Yesterday I didn't do B, so I thought you would appreciate me doing B today. Okay? Chloe, you cranky over there? Oh, okay. You don't look very happy.
Defeated.
Okay, Josh is good. Bless you. He's okay? All right. Very important. Chloe, you have a piece of hair that's misbehaving again today. All right. Scan 2. Now, here are 2 questions from last night's homework that are just like the quiz. And I have a question for you. When you did these questions last night, if you did not get them correct, when you spent the 10 minutes hanging out in the hall before class, did you go up to anybody and say, hey, how'd you do that? Because had you done that, might it have helped your quiz?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. As long as you found somebody who was able to do a little better than you. Okay? And there's the last one. Okay? All right, so as always, these questions will be sitting in they'll be on my website tonight. They're on the YouTube channel. They will be on the YouTube channel sometime next period. And let's talk about today's lesson sheet. I can't find my copy of it at the moment, and I really don't feel like digging it up on one computer and pulling it out on the other computer. I did take a peek at today's lesson sheet, and from what I remember, from what I recall, everything on there is, I don't really have to write a lot, so I'm just going to write the questions out on the board today. All right, to do it, we're gonna shortcut to do it a little bit. I'm just gonna ask you for the answers, and if no one has any questions, then I won't bother doing it. If you do have questions, I will. All right, letter A, what do we get? Janelle?
X equals 8.
8 is correct. Letter B, what do we get? Sarah E?
I got X equals 2.
And? AJ?
X equals -9.
Yes, both, because it's a quadratic, we expect two answers, right, Sarah E? And remember, there's no context for that one, so we don't reject any answers. It's 2 and -9. Because if we factor, we get x plus 9, x minus 2. What about letter C? Somebody else on letter C. Not that I don't appreciate AJ and Janelle, but I want somebody else to tell me the potential answers to letter C. I can actually do them off the top of my head, but I want you to
I'm not
give me the
AJ, I'm
answers.
Spencer's Mexican friend.
All right, so Spencer's Mexican friend, what would we get for letter C?
Alright, you'd get -5.
And positive 2.
Look at my
C.
Yes,
I got
C.
Want a burrito?
No, I don't like burritos. I'm afraid I'd have to excuse myself and go to the bathroom.
Oh, that.
Yeah, it can have a very disastrous
Wait,
effect.
what number?
Yes.
Can you solve that one? Because, like,
Sure.
I got messed up on the signs, but I didn't, at one point I was stuck. Because I got 2 times C plus 5 times C minus 6.
Okay. So let's see. Since we are in our Spanish descent mode here. Hey, stop.
Siesta.
Everybody taking a look, right? This is a quadratic equation. Being a quadratic equation, we want to get it all on one side. Agree?
Yes.
Minus 20, minus 20, 2c squared plus 6c minus 20 equals 0. So, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think you should have a particularly difficult time with that. Now, the next thing that's important to do, excuse me one second.
Yes, divide.
What's that, bud?
Yes, divide.
Well, we could divide everything by 2, but I would prefer you not do that.
Can't we just run
It won't affect, listen, hold it. If you divide everything by 2, it will not affect the answer. Can we be clear about that? The reason I don't want you to divide by 2 is because this question, solving the quadratic, is very similar to the question, Kyle, to factor. And if you factor and divide, like you get used to doing with a quadratic equation, you will leave the 2 out of your answer and get it wrong. So I would much rather do what Emma just said a second ago, which she said, can't you just factor out the 2 they share in common? And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's what I did, and I have no idea where to go after.
Oh,
Factor that.
Once you factor, but you just let go of the 2?
this
You
is
didn't divide by
this is the sense of, remember we talked a second ago about the idea of factoring completely?
Yeah.
This is the complete part. I have to factor the trinomial. Maybe it's the guy on the left, maybe it's the guy in the middle, maybe it's the guy on the right.
Okay, now.
That's impossible, die. I do check it out as a possibility. Mathematically, this is one of the areas where friends and I will, where I find it frustrating to be a math major and someone who has a degree in mathematics. Mathematicians are trained to investigate all possibilities, and then only reject the possibility after you have tested the possibility in the situation or the context. People in life don't always do that, and it can drive me crazy. Like, for instance, when I think about the next house we're going to move to, I don't just dismiss. Like, my wife would look at a picture and go, I don't like it. That bathroom's horrible. The rest of the house is great. I can redo a bathroom, you know? So I don't dismiss quickly out of hand. Yet, a lot of people who are not mathematically, or do not think mathematically, they are more likely to dismiss out of hand. I am going to test all of the possibilities. there are three things that when I multiply them, I get 0. That means that one or more of those three things must be 0. Maybe it is the guy on the left. Maybe it's the guy in the middle. Maybe it's the guy on the right. Oh, I looked at the guy on the left. Does 2 ever equal 0?
No.
No! So I eliminate it. Die. Minus 5. C is negative 5, plus 2, plus 2. C is 2. Okay? So that is how I arrive at all of my correct answers. Now, I will do the last one on the board also. And that says 5n squared minus 11n plus 2 equals 0. Now, in my opinion, this type of factoring is the most difficult type of factor. And it's the type of factoring that we have to work hard to master. Namely, there is no common factor. When there is no common factor, what do? Plan B. So I take the 5, multiply it here, and I get n squared minus 11n plus 10. Then I factor that, n minus 10, n minus 1. Then I have to divide back in by that 5. I can't forget it. So I get n minus 2, and then over here I get 5n minus 1 equals 0.
10 divided by 2.
Because you.
But
Yeah,
10
would it
over
be
here.
negative 5?
Oh, yeah, negative 5, sorry. So then I get, and will that work out? Hold it, I did something wrong. Oh, it's a 2.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the problem. Oh, no, this is a 10. Good.
No, but
You
then like
divided by.
you divided
You
by
divided
2.
the 10 by 2.
Oh, okay, so it was 2. Yeah, in other words, I did it too fast in my head. King sloppy mistakes right here. Right here. Nice to meet you. Okay, so n minus 2 is 0. I was doing that right. And then 5 minus 1 is 0. My work was wrong, but my answer was right. Add 2 to both sides. N equals 2. Add 1, add 1. 5n is 1. Divide by 5. N is 1/5. So 2 and 1/5 are the correct answers. Any questions about that? Kaylee?
So like when you divide by 5, why
Uh-huh.
don't you just leave it as n minus 1/5?
You know, that's a great question, and you could do that, God bless. But you know what I get so scared of? I get so scared that kids will confuse what you do when you solve versus what you do when you factor. And if you left the factor n minus 1/5, it's wrong. So by always making you go back and put the 5 there, when you see the factor and you always do the 5 as a matter of course, you'll get the factor right. I don't have to worry about you getting the factor wrong. Okay? Any other questions? All right. Now, we are through the do it. Then it says, number 1, what is the strategy or algorithm used to do variable A differ from variable B? Variable A, it's not quadratic. So you get letters on one side, numbers on the other. On letter B, it's quadratic, so you get them all to one side. Compare and contrast the techniques for C and D. In C, there was a common factor, so you pull out the common factor. For D, there is no common factor, so we go to plan B. Questions? Okay, let's have you do number 1 underneath that right now on the board, because that is a lot like what we want to do. And I'm only going to give you about a minute to do it, because we are a little short of time today. Much like your quiz question. Nice slippers. My last day of school, I'm wearing sweats and slippers. That'll be my last teaching day.
Oh, odd integer.
We good? We looking good, guys? Right? Okay? All right, so, next, I'm going to go as far as I can through this next problem, though I do not believe I will be able to get all the way through the problem, okay? The Smiths have an old family photograph that needs to be framed. The dimensions of the original photograph are 5 by 7. 7, 5. The frame is going to be the same width all the way around the perimeter. So this goes back to what we did the other day. Okay? And obviously, let's call the width W. Does that make sense? All right. It says the area of the new photograph is 63. So area is length times width. What is that distance? Spencer?
Is it 9?
I don't know.
It's W.
No.
It's
AJ?
Is it W plus 7?
Close.
Did 2W plus 7?
2W plus 7.
Yes.
Right, we got a W here, we got a W here, and then we got the 7 in between. What about this distance? What would we have there? I think everybody should know the answer to this now. Everybody? 2W plus 5. And then if I multiply them, 2W plus 7 times 2W plus 5, I'm going to get 63. Okay? And now, from here, you know what to do. You double distribute, you minus the 63, you do what you have to do to get the answer. Make sure you fit the answers in context, because it's a distance, you would reject any negative answer. Okay? Yeah, if you guys would remember to please put your calculators back every day. I seem to find 1 or 2 calculators that are not put back.